Hello, welcome back into another installment of DrDarnise's House of Religion, Magic, and Conjure. Glad to have you with me. Today, I thought I would talk about the importance of having a spiritual mentor as someone you work with towards your own spiritual development and evolution. And part of it will be some story time as I share some of the experiences I have had with a spiritual mentor recently and over the years. Because I thought of this because in recent consultation with one of my spiritual mentors, it really started to dawn on me the importance of having someone who knows more, who's more seasoned, who can really kind of pull you along in the direction that you need in particular. So I'm going to give you 3 reasons why I think it's important to have a spiritual mentor, but also, as I said, I'll be sharing, what I've been learning as well. Because recently I've just paid attention to the things that I've been working on with my mentor and how, he says things, and he very well might watch this. He says things and I won't understand what he's saying. I won't know why it's relevant for me right away. And then over time, it drops in as to why that's really important for me. So, one of the reasons it's important to have a spiritual mentor is you have somebody who knows you, who gets to know you, who gets to know, something about your life and your overall path, your overall life theme. And they can kind of discern what it is you need next. So I think it's important to have that kind of person because this is information you can't get from a book. As much as, I believe in reading and I'm always recommending books and everything, there are certain things you can't get from a book. There are certain things you can't get from watching a movie, a documentary. It's good to have someone who knows you lead you. And I think, because this is what happens with my spiritual mentor now, and as I look back over my life, what has been the pattern? People who don't tell you everything at one time, and they don't tell you why they're telling you what they're telling you. Now that might sound convoluted, what I just said, but what I mean is they give you information for you to grow into yourself. So, it's like, when you're growing up, right? You're a kid or you're a teenager and your family tells you something and you don't know what they mean yet. And then as you grow and you mature, you go, oh yeah, my mother used to always say that, or my grandmother used to always say that. It's that kind of thing. So when you have a spiritual mentor, it's like having somebody who drops in these nuggets of spiritual wisdom that will help you in your own personal evolution. And I think a person who's a really good mentor for you will know what you're ready for, right? They can't give you everything, right? They can't even give you everything they know. They can give you what they think you can digest and use along your own path. So, rather than me going further down my own personal rabbit hole, let me give you the 3. So, one reason why you need a spiritual mentor is because you don't know what you don't know, right? And so you don't want to spend your time, your life energy, reinventing the wheel, meaning some of the questions that you have in your own spiritual development have been written about, talked about for a long time. And so you don't have to start at ground zero. You're working with someone who's a mentor. You're working with somebody who's aware of different sources, whether it be a book, whether it be a documentary, whether it be their own personal spiritual experiences. What kind of experiences have they had? Are they someone who is really esoteric and metaphysical and they've had their own divine experiences? They've had their own initiations. They've had their own awakenings. That's the kind of person you want to have as a mentor. Someone who's had their own path where they've had to grow into it themselves. So they understand what it's like for a student or an apprentice along the path. And part of what they give to you as your mentor is something you can't get anywhere else. Like I said, you're someone else is taking time and energy to pour into your spiritual development, your awakening, your, the thing that matters most. I'm going to say the thing that matters most for people who are spiritually aware, for people who want to be spiritually aware, for people who want to have some type of awakening. You need somebody who has stumbled along the path, someone who has, made mistakes, someone who has had some out-of-body experiences, some astral experiences, some visions, some initiation. You want that type of person because they know stuff you don't know, and they know stuff that other people haven't written about. And for that person to take time to pour into you, to pour into me, is really priceless. So we don't want to spend time, if we can help it, spinning our wheels, thinking that we know everything. There's no way that any one of us can know everything. So you don't know what you know. You don't know what you don't know. So it's always great to have a spiritual teacher for that reason. And again, the second reason I would say is because you want someone who can really plug into who you are and where you are on your journey, so they know what you're ready to grow into. As I was starting to say with my current mentor, I love how he tells me things, and I think he knows. Like sometimes he says things to me, I have no idea. No idea what to do with that information that he's just shared with me. Right? I mean, it's like stuff I can intellectually wrap my mind around, yes. But I don't know necessarily how that's going to help me. So I'm just quiet and I just listen, right? I'm just like, okay, well, this is going to make sense later, I guess. And then when it does kick in, it's such a great feeling. It's this feeling of, oh, that's what he meant. That's why he was telling me this. This really pushes me forward in a way that I didn't even know to ask. I couldn't have even formulated this type of question. Or it helps me formulate new questions that I wouldn't have otherwise. So it's like a seed he gives me. And then it takes root, and then it blossoms whenever it blossoms. And then when it does, it's like a gift to me and maybe to him too, because then he's like, oh, she finally caught on to what I was saying. And then lastly, what is my last point? Well, I guess the obvious, we want to be able to pass on this esoteric knowledge and history, because in the mainstream, we know that we're not going to get certain information from the mainstream media or, popular culture. Popular culture is going to tell us something else, right, about what something means. I mean, think about what they've done to African spiritualities. If you just get your information from movies, you would think African spiritualities are all about, something demonic and evil. So when you have a mentor, you're working with someone who has some direct knowledge and experience and who can guide you in the right way with the right information. So it's a passing on of information from them to you, but then from you to someone else. When I step into the role of mentoring somebody else, it's because I've received that knowledge. And knowledge that other person is not obligated to give me, right? My mentor is not obligated to give me what he is giving me. He is pouring into me for a lot of reasons, right? And I'm so appreciative of that as I realize more and more how much he's giving me. And then, as I pour into you all who watch the videos and my own clients, even my students in the classroom, I can give them little tiny bits in the classroom and hope that it takes root and blossoms later. But, there's a certain responsibility, I think, for those of us who have good information, have accurate information, especially about us as African people on the planet, the African diaspora, because we're so marginalized, and our history and our culture is so demonized, right? Minimized, marginalized, oppressed, suppressed, that it's up to us who know any part of it to pass it on to someone else, knowing that we can't look to, popular culture or the mainstream media to be responsible. Why would we think that they're going to give our children the truth, especially when they don't even know it themselves, right? So that's the last reason that, I can think of some other reasons, but I'm trying to just keep it to 3 of my top reasons why it's important to have a spiritual mentor. When that person is really pouring into you, into me, into us, it empowers us, yes, for our own spiritual journey, but it also, I think, creates this demand upon us to pour into others. And that keeps it going, keeps the accurate information going. Pouring into somebody for their spiritual development is priceless. What could we say that's worth? It's not even about money at that point, right? Because the great work, as some of the mystery schools would say, the great work is for the recognition of your spiritual union with the divine, your awakening to the fact that you are a spiritual being having a human experience, awakening to the fact that you are the creator of your own experience. And if you have somebody who can continually reinforce that for you and then show you how, that's priceless. So, let's see, I said I was going to give a bit of a story time too. So, not only this particular mentor that I have, who I, greatly revere and appreciate, but I can think back when I was in my my early 20s, really fresh out of my undergrad program, and I moved to New York. Now, I'm from Ohio, so, green as grass from Cincinnati, Ohio, and really not knowing very much about esoteric spirituality. But I had found my way over my teenage years to some books. And so, to try to make a long story short, it's a very long story, but when I was in New York in my early 20s, I ended up taking a class, sort of just a day-long workshop from this man, and I couldn't tell you his name, I couldn't tell you the class I took, I don't know any of that anymore. But what I know, when I sat there with him that day, it was a Saturday, at the end of it, I went up to him and I asked him if he would teach me more. And I don't even know what I was thinking he was going to teach me. I don't know. All I know is that I was really spiritually hungry. And this man seemed to know something that I wanted to know. And I was hanging on every word while I sat there in his day-long seminar. And so something propelled me to go and ask him to teach me more. Now, mind you, it may come as a surprise, but I was really shy and did not really talk very much. And so for me to go and ask this man is pretty extraordinary, really. And the fact that he agreed to do it. He agreed to mentor me. Now, again, it was a very odd, this was the very early 90s in Brooklyn, New York. And when I think about it, it's like he was an angel that the universe sent me for a short period of time to just give me a little bit of information and then point me in another direction. Like, there'll be another one coming after me. He didn't even say it that way, but it's just clear to me that that was a very important moment for me in my spiritual and educational development, to meet that man. And in some ways, it could not happen the way it could not happen now the way it happened then, because what ended up happening was he invited me to his apartment, right? He says, we're going to do this in my home, my apartment in Brooklyn. Now, mind you, you don't do that anymore, right? There was this young woman going to the home of this man who I didn't know, right? I was going to go and meet with him every other week. I didn't know him. I did not know him. But this is how it happened. And he was really, and I couldn't, if I saw him walking down the street today, I wouldn't recognize him. I have almost no recollection of him specifically of what he looked like, tall, thin, white man, who said to me at the time he agreed to take me on, he says, well, there has to be some reciprocity of energy, so I'll have to charge you. He says, but I won't charge you much. But there has to always be a reciprocity. Okay, I said. And he goes, and then there's going to come a time when I'm going to go back to Scotland. Now, he wasn't from Scotland, but he spent a lot of time there, and he goes, I'm going to go back. And so you won't be able to find me. And at this time, we didn't have cell phones. This was, again, very early 90s, 91, 92, something like that. And so he goes, so you're going to call me and, phone line will be dead. I will have disconnected my phone and gone back to Scotland. I don't know exactly when that's going to happen, but just know if you can't find me, I left. So it's only going to be for a short period of time, he told me. And I'm like, okay, well, okay. I went with it. And so we studied together for, I don't know how long, maybe it was a couple of months, and he would give me something to read, and then something very obscure and esoteric. What it really was, in case you happen to know, Rudolf Steiner and anthroposophy. If you happen to know about Madame Blavatsky, theosophy, anthroposophy, Rudolf Steiner. Very obscure stuff to me. And so I started reading that stuff, and then he would basically talk. We would just get together and talk about it every other week. And it was about coming to a certain understanding that there is a spiritual element to who we really are that's beyond the physical. And I suppose I knew that, but here was a way for us. The book was really just a jumping off point for the conversation to talk about what else there might be in the ether. So we talked about auras and the etheric body and the different levels to which the spirit ascends after physical death and that kind of stuff, right? So, no, it doesn't seem to have any practical kind of application to anything, but it was what I needed at the time because it really just helped me expand my consciousness. That's what he helped me do, expand my consciousness. That's what a spiritual mentor can help you do. It's not so much about, oh, how can I, utilize this tomorrow, in any sort of practical way, but it was, I had a yearning for it. I wanted that kind of knowledge. I wanted that information from him, and he generously shared it with me. And then, like he said, he was gone. Couldn't find him no more. And as I said, I can't remember his name. I don't have anything that he wrote down. I have nothing other than the knowledge that he poured into me. And I just feel like it was a divine appointment. And then there have been other spiritual mentors along the way and who haven't been quite so mysterious, I guess. And, up to the one I have now, who is not mysterious so much. But, the kind of thing that he pours into me is still helping me expand exponentially. So when you're working with a spiritual mentor, it's somebody who can help you expand exponentially because, again, you don't know what you don't know. And you're not going to even know it when they first tell you necessarily. So people who work with me, for example, I got a whole lot of stuff that can come pouring out of me, right? And I recognize that sometimes people can feel overwhelmed, so that I want to chunk it down and say, okay, well, let's go back a little bit, or maybe, we don't have to talk about all of that right now. But there's so much that's been poured into me that I have a great desire to pour into others, and so that's where that comes from. But being a teacher and being a coach, it's important to me to pass on what I know. So, I'm going to wrap this up. That's a bit of my personal story, but I would definitely encourage you to, find a spiritual mentor and, have a spirit of humility in terms of working with that person, and patience, because this is a lifelong project. This isn't about, oh, tell me everything, in, a year even. This is like your own personal initiation, your own personal mystery school, and you have your own personal mentor and teacher. It's a lifelong process, and it's extremely valuable. I feel like people approach me to be their coach, and that's fine, you know. But also think about the people who are in your communities, people who you know, older people who might have something for you. Think about, you know, just spending time with them and listening, right? Sometimes we don't listen to the old folks so much. We think that they don't know, they don't understand what's going on anymore. They know what it is to live to be however age they are, right? They know that. So again, I'm going to wrap that up, and again, just say that I appreciate you hanging in with me. Like, share, subscribe. Always let me know if you're on the long haul team, which means you've listened to the whole video, and I sure do appreciate you. So that's all. Bye for now.